Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to today's video. This episode will guide you through the issues of the Uncanny X-Men published by Marvel in 1983. Issue 168. Professor Xavier is a jerk. He has decided that Kitty Pryde will no longer be an X-Men, but instead will join the New Mutants. She's too young to be risking her life in battle, and she now has other mutants in the school who are about her own age. Kitty is not pleased with this decision because she has earned her place among the X-Men. All the team members agree with her on this, but the professor just won't listen. She's complaining about it to Illyana because she thinks she's being treated like a child. Illyana tells her that maybe she is. She's been ranting non-stop about it, and her mood has been influencing everyone around her in the mansion ever since she has been shifted to the other team. Illyana tells her that complaining about this not being fair to someone who has spent half her life in the demonic dimension of Limbo is kind of a moot point. Kitty apologizes, and Illyana tells her what's done is done and there's no use lingering on it. Illyana jokingly tells her that they should hurry and catch the bus into Salem Center, or they will miss out on dance class and then she'll really have a reason to be feeling miserable. As they run, they are being watched by alien eyes from inside the mansion. An alien who has not been there for very long. He hates the climate here and there has been little to hunt. Something which will have to change very soon. In another part of the mansion, Wolverine is telling Nightcrawler that he's going out for a road trip. He's been a loner for most of his life by choice, and he sometimes feels the need to be alone, and this is one of those times. Kurt asks him where he will be going, and Logan tells him he's going back to Canada, and should be back in a couple of weeks. He tells Kurt they should try to not need him for a while. Kurt then says that they could all use some vacation time after everything that's happened to them recently. Kurt takes a look outside and sees Illyana and Kitty. He asks Logan if he minds if they give them a lift to town on their way to the airport. Logan says he's fine with that. Kurt mentions how Kitty has been in such a bad mood, and Logan says he can't blame her. He understands perfectly. They have a discussion about the whole situation, and both sides are being talked about in great detail. Kitty's age, the risks involved, the dangers of life itself as a human, and being born a mutant. They both agree that Kitty has more than proven herself to be a full-fledged member of the X-Men, and that she's never let them down, regardless of her age or them not knowing the full extent of her powers yet. Kurt does understand Xavier's reservations and decision though. In the danger room, Xavier himself is testing the limits of his newly cloned body. Somehow his perfectly new body seems to not allow him to properly walk, even though there's nothing wrong with his legs. He's being observed by Lalandra from the booth, and the monitors tell her just how much Xavier is straining himself with just trying to stand up from his chair. She sees him take a couple of small and unstable steps, as he's trying to convince himself that the sensations he has are not real. Only a residue in his mind of having to have dealt with physical pain of having crushed legs and not having been able to walk for years. The pain he feels cannot be real, yet he collapses in unbearable pain. Lalandra rushes downstairs to the danger room and sits down with Charles. He tells her that having to focus so much pretty much disables his mental powers. It's either walking or being useful to the X-Men on the battlefield. She asks him if he will sacrifice his personal desire for duty. Charles notices an underlying sentiment and asks Lalandra what's going on. She tells him that when the Starjammers leave the Earth, she will join them. She's going to try and regain her throne from her mad sister. She cannot abandon her empire. According to her, the Shi'ar need her. Xavier asks her if she would please stay because he needs her with him. And Lalandra in turn tells Charles to come with her. He then tells her that he has done so before, and that decision cost him the life of one of his students. She asks him if he blames her for Jean Grey's death. He doesn't. He instead blames himself, and he tells her he feels obligated to help other mutants. There keep appearing more and more mutants every day, and he seems to be the only one prepared and properly equipped to help them. To him, it feels like his duty, much like hers to her empire. They both have their roles to play in the universe, and one day they will be together again. They embrace as they too are being watched by the same alien that was watching Kitty and Illyana, and it still hasn't fed. It's getting hungry and irritated. In Salem Center, at Stevie Hunter's dance studio, Kitty and Illyana are being taught by Stevie. Kitty's doing a familiar routine, but Stevie's not pleased with her performance. She tells Kitty that she's been doing a lousy job every time today, and she asks her what's wrong. Illyana tells Stevie to take a wild guess. Kitty snaps at Stevie, and Stevie tells her that she's trying too hard, and that dancing should be movements that you enjoy, that she should relax. Kitty tells her that she's in a fighting mood, and Stevie asks her if they should put on some gloves and spar a little then. Kitty tells her she's sorry and that she shouldn't be lashing out at Stevie. It's not her she's mad at. Kitty tells Stevie that she belongs with the X-Men, that they are like family to her. Getting shifted to the New Mutants tears her up inside, and she doesn't know what to do anymore. Stevie tells her that she is going to have to find a way to deal with this, and that if she builds a strong enough case, she might be able to change Xavier's mind. Stevie also tells her to take the anger inside of her and to do something constructive with it, and that she has nothing to lose. Illyana is surprised at Stevie being able to do what she has been trying to do all week. Kitty is going to give it her all. Professor X is in for a treat. The following morning, Aurora is taking a stroll outside. It's cold outside and she's only wearing a cloak of white fur, as her weather manipulating powers are keeping her warm. She rejoices in the fact that she's home again, back on Earth after having been away for weeks. She takes off the cloak, being totally naked underneath, as the sun comes up and she basks in its rays, restoring and replenishing her physical and psychic links to her mother world. Suddenly though, clouds appear as out of nowhere and a storm starts brewing. Not one she had summoned, and she's turning cold and her teeth start chattering. And then, the storm is over, just as suddenly as it started. She feels as if her attempt to communicate with the elements was denied her. She wonders what cause is and is afraid of the answer. During the next couple of days, Kitty unleashes her offensive on the professor, trying to change his mind. Trying to convince him that she's worthy of being an X-Men and does not belong with the New Mutants. First she tries logic, beating him in a game of chess, telling him that she's smart, impervious to most attacks, and that she can go places where Nightcrawler can't, and that no prison can hold her. Next she tries passion, telling Xavier that she saved the X-Men's lives on more than one occasion, that they need her, and that he knows it, and that he's too stubborn to admit this. Then she tries cooperation, helping Xavier with moving stuff around in the dimension, along with exploring the limits of her abilities. After that she tries flattery, telling him she wouldn't know what to do without him. How she tells everyone that he's the handsomest, nicest and most wonderful man. All she tries does not seem to have the desired effect. Xavier, though impressed, does not seem to be willing to change his mind in this matter. In the warmer climate of Florida, Scott is visiting a friend whom he's been close with, by the name of Alidis or Lee Forrester. As he makes his way down to the dock to Lee's ship, he thinks back to how his father had told him that he used to go to his grandparents when he was little, but he can't remember them. After Corsair is done taking care of some business, the two of them are about to go visit them soon. In the meantime, Scott figured, he might as well meet up with an old friend of his. He hasn't seen Lee in a couple of months and he starts to wonder if this was a good idea. Lee is currently doing maintenance work on the ship with her companion named Paolo, who's handing her down tools from the deck when she is down by the engine. Scott gestures Paolo to keep quiet, as he takes his place and hands a wrench to Lee. She notices the voice she hears is not Paolo and looks up to see Scott wishing her a Merry Christmas. She climbs on the deck and embraces him while yelling out his name. Over dinner, Scott and Lee talk about the stuff that has happened to Scott in the past couple of months. Lee has seen her share of life-threatening dangers on the waters, in the form of sharks and hurricanes, but nothing compared to the stories Scott is telling her. It all sounds impressive to her and she's not sure how to deal with it all. Scott also tells her how he found out that he has quite the family, where he had always thought that he was an orphan with no family at all, and that him and his brother Alex will be going to Alaska with his father, to meet with his grandparents, and he hopes they like him. Lee asks him if he will be coming back or no. He tells her that he would like to, but that he isn't sure if it will be for a visit or a stay. He's trying to change the subject by complimenting her on her now longer hair, but she won't have it. Scott notices that she's somewhat angry and asks what's wrong. She tells him that ever since Scott walked into her life, things have been crazy. He then tells her that he can't lie to her, and that he cares too much for her to tell her lies and to make commitments that he can't keep. He tells her that he's sorry, that he never wanted to hurt her, and that he will leave now. She then tells him that if he takes one more step, she'll knock him out cold. She tells him his world terrifies her, that she could never be a part of that, even if that meant that she would be losing him. She's basically telling him that he will have to choose between her or his life with the X-Men. But until that time comes, they can be happy with one another, even if it's only for a little while. Next we switch to Central Park, New York, to the apartment of flight attendant Amanda Sefton. When she comes home from being away from a month long, she finds her apartment being lit by candles, which surprises her because her roommates are not supposed to be there. Someone calls out to her and she immediately recognizes who it is. It's Nightcrawler, and he's here to keep her company, whereas she only had a doll looking like him before. He figured she would like the real thing for Christmas for a change, and she agrees. Back at the school, Kitty is fretting over Xavier's reluctance in shifting her back to the X-Men. She's pretty much convinced that she'll be stuck with the X-Babies. She hears a knock on the window and it's Piotr and Ilyana, all dressed up in winter clothing. They ask her if she wants to come along with them, as they are about to chop up some firewood. She declines as she has homework to do and she does not want to give Xavier any more reason to keep her from rejoining the X-Men. She's already behind as it is. Even though Kitty is very smart, possibly on a genius level, she's been slacking her homework due to everything that's been going on. She does tell Piotr and Ilyana that she'll be preparing some cider for when they're done with their work outside. She uses the home scan to see who else is around, so she knows exactly how much cider to make, and she finds an anomaly on the scanners. As she puts on her costume to get ready to go down into the maintenance tunnels below the mansion, she reminisces to when she first wore this, when she first entered the school. It used to be her own special uniform, but not anymore. All of the New Mutants use this costume design now, just like the first original X-Men did before them, many years ago. As she faces down the floors to get to the tunnels, she notices the lights haven't turned on, even though she had ordered the main computer system to do so. It's just the emergency beacons that are turned on. She finds the reason why, namely the main cable is ripped up, and she suspects sabotage. She mentally reaches out to Xavier and lets him know that they might have a situation going on. He tells her that she should come back upstairs and that he'll send Colossus down there, since this could be a dangerous situation even though he couldn't find anyone else down there with a mind scan. She tells the professor that she'll just push a little bit further, since this might be a false alarm and just rats that have chewed up the cable. He tells her to be careful and she asks him to stay with her. At that moment she hears something. She has found something indeed. It's the little dragon that she had run into on Broodworld, but never had the chance to say goodbye to. She picks it up, being happy to have found it, and they cuddle. She figures it had made its way off the planet as they escaped themselves, right before the planet exploded. That's when they hear another sound. They are being confronted by 3 Sidri hunters, leftovers from their attack on the mansion months ago, before it had gotten destroyed, and they have apparently taken up refuge in the tunnels. Xavier tells her to get out of there immediately, but it's too late. Kitty gets attacked by them and they zap her with some kind of beam. She falls to the ground and is worried about the dragon, and she smashes her head on the floor. The concussion prohibits her to use her power and she has to revert on her fighting skills that she's been taught by Wolverine. The dragon helps her out and together they hold their own against the Sidri. Xavier tells Kitty that these are not fully grown Sidri and that they are vulnerable to intense heat, something which Kitty says has already been figured out by Lockheed. Xavier asks her who that is, and Kitty tells him it's her dragon and that she'll explain it later. Together they take out 2 Sidri, and as Kitty thinks they're gaining the upper hand, she gets blasted the second time, smacked against the wall. She has no idea where Lockheed is, and she can't face out at the moment. She notices that the Sidri is keeping its distance from her, and that somehow she must have scared it. She thinks it's about to unleash another blast, and as it does, Colossus throws himself in the middle, taking the brunt of the shot on his chest. He tells the Sidri that in this form he can't really be hurt easily, and that maybe over time it would be able to damage him, but Colossus won't allow the Sidri any more time and smashes it. Kitty is happy to see Colossus, and he is worried about her, because she seems to be hurt. She then tells him that she'll be fine, and as he compliments her on doing a good job in defeating 2 of the Sidri, she tells him that she had help. He asks if it was one of the X-Men or the New Mutants, but she tells him it was neither. She tells Colossus that Xavier had told her this were probably part of a nest, and that's when Lockheed steps out of a niche in the tunnel, burping, with a smoldering Sidri behind him and smoke coming from his mouth. Apparently Lockheed went away to deal with the nest. Colossus checked out the storeroom that the Sidri had apparently infested and found thousands of eggs, all charred and broken, and he asks how it's even possible for a small creature like that to eat so many eggs like Kitty had told him. She tells him he was simply hungry. She then tells the professor that they can't send the dragon home, since its world has been destroyed and that the X-Men were partially responsible for that. They owe it to the creature to give it a new home. Xavier says that sounds logical and asks Kitty if the creature will also eat him if his answer is no. Xavier finds out that the creature seems to have a certain intelligence and that it's impervious to his telepathic probes. He also realizes that there's more than meets the eyes when it comes to Kitty. That he's never seen how mature she actually is compared to her age. And that he might have made an error in assigning her to the New Mutants. So he suggests a compromise. She'll rejoin the X-Men provided that her education and training do not get interfered with. If it does though, she'll be going back to the New Mutants without any argument. He asks her if that is acceptable and if they have a deal. And Kitty says they do. We then switch over to Anchorage, Alaska, to a small airport where Cyclops, Havoc and Corsair have arrived to visit a newfound long-lost part of their family. Scott and Alex's grandparents run a cargo airline there, and as they have been waiting for a while, they figure that they have been too busy to come pick them up. Corsair notices Scott having picked up a tan while in Florida, and he asks Scott if he had enjoyed himself there. Scott is not complaining, and his brother Alex is taunting him by asking him why he's blushing. Scott then asks his little brother if he's looking for a fight. Alex jokingly responds by saying that he's the lover and not the fighter in the family. At that moment, Alex notices they're being approached by someone in the distance, and he asks his dad if that's their grandmother. When the lady walks up to them, she tells him that she was sent to come pick up the Summers clan. Scott starts stuttering as he introduces himself and he starts panicking. He can't believe his eyes. Alex and Corsair similarly don't see what Scott sees and introduce themselves normally. Scott wonders if he's going mad, because of this woman's voice and face. He does not comprehend what he's seeing and doesn't understand why his brother and father do not seem as shocked as he himself is. And the young lady, who looks like an exact mirror image of his recently deceased lover Jean Grey, introduces herself as Madeline Pryor. Thank you for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, because that will help me out in growing the channel and being able to produce more videos like this one. See you next episode.